There we go. I guess it would help if I actually turned on the microphone processor. Okay, yep. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, February 22nd, 2017, and slightly apologize, not slightly, I apologize for the slight delay for this morning. I have been working extra hours at work, and with GDC preparation, there just hasn't been a bunch of time. So I literally came home after work, turned everything on, and we're getting it set up. So, with that said, uh, I literally don't remember what we're gonna do. I think we're still working on networking. Okay, so hello everybody who's hanging out. Good morning, Harry, and everyone else. If there's anything you guys, of course, need help with, or I can hopefully try to answer questions, problems, things like that, please feel free to ask during the stream. There's no issues with interrupting or anything like that. That's what I'm here for. Trying to figure stuff up and stuff out and helping people. I don't plan on having this be an extremely long stream simply because I have stuff to do, but I believe we were working on multiplayer, so we'll see if we can finish on that. To answer your question, Harry, I will be giving a small presentation, not at the main GDC conference, but at something separate. Epic is hosting for educational people. Basically, just showing people what I do. I literally am still working on my presentation because I'm not happy with it, and I keep changing it. At this point in time, my plan is to literally just show 20 minutes worth of cat pictures while I talk about what I'm doing. I can't seem to follow a script. I just horribly get off script whenever I'm trying to follow one. I just can't do it. I work better just simply talking and explaining things. So I'm going to try that at this point. I'm going to do a demo of that later today and see how that works out. At the worst, people see 20 minutes of cats and hopefully they're entertained. Okay, so last thing we were working on was getting our nifty team map stuff working with colors. Whoops, I managed to lock myself in. That is hilarious. And we did get it working. We managed to get all of our people spawning in, and we managed to even get our extra people spawning in. I think that's where we left off with. We have no sort of error correction. We're not keeping track of teams and joining and leaving. And I literally have no idea how to do that. Okay. Okay. So our game mode itself works fine. The problem we run into is down here. Basically, this is what happens when there's nothing left. Let me comment this. We get here, spawn at the first spot as we ran out of the correct points. Okay. So at least we know now when we get here, because this is where we're at. We don't have any proper team balancing or team joining and leaving. We have no real way to join and leave right now. We did figure out how to add people at the end of the last stream, but it didn't really work out too well in terms of properly adding and removing people from joining because we don't have a lobby and things like that. So I think what we need to work on learning, because honestly, we could keep working on our team game mode. I could put in some safety checks and things like that. But I think our biggest issue right now is how do we stop people from actually joining if they join in? We have our code here, our post login, and we have our choose player start code. And these are all things that are ran when someone joins our server. But how do we basically make it where someone joins our server but is never actually part of our game? So we need to figure out in terms of multiplayer, how do you actually not have people join your server? How do we fire up a server that doesn't have anybody joining? And yeah, Harry's basically seems like it is, you're on the right track from what I'm thinking. You basically spawn them in more as a spectator, and then you would spawn the pawn and possess it. Yeah, that definitely seems like it the proper way of doing this. So what happens if we do something really simple like that? That is a very good way of thinking about it. Let's grab our game mode, and let's turn our default pawn class into none. And what happens if we run this with 6 people? Okay, so we get our expected result, I think. Let's see, we have our player starts, and we have player states, but it looks like we get no actual pawn spawning in. So it looks like without a pawn, we're not going to have any of the other stuff called. So that's actually something good to know. The choose player start, let's test this one. Choose player start will not get called unless we have a valid pawn we're trying to spawn in. So that's good to know. Okay, I really wish this default was bigger than 2 seconds. Okay. We do get the post logon event though. Log in event, not log on. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it did the separate world shenanigan. I don't think there's really any way of testing that. We know that this code never gets called because it's not trying to spawn you. Let me rephrase that actually. That's that would be me assuming. Let's actually test this. Okay, I was wrong. Crap. Yep, see what happens when I assumed? Dagnabbit. Okay, let's start leaving debug stuff inside the engine. Let's actually see where this code runs into. Okay, so the choose player start does get called. Even though, okay, so I assumed something wrong. Yep, so let's see what actually happens. Choose player start runs, we go through here. This stuff should all work. This stuff should all work. This stuff should work. This stuff should work. So let's see where we are returning. Let's just go ahead and flag all of them and see which one actually gets called. Okay, this is our normal return, like we expected. It's going to return back a default player start. I think we should be okay, Harry, in regards to someone spawning in somewhere else, since we technically have our safety code here and now, and we are returning a valid one no matter what, even though it's the first one. Let's see, we should end up running through here. We should have this one fire, that one fires again, that one fires again, fires again. We're going through all of our, and we only have 6 people starting, so we should never even run into the issue with not enough player starts anymore either. If we ran, we have 8 player starts, so let's go back to our example with 12 and run this. This is our server firing up. All of our clients should spawn in. Then this should run through for each of our clients. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we get to the point where we don't have a valid player start. We spawn them at the default. Spawn them at the default, default, default. Yep, so that works as expected. We spawn in 8 people in our valid player starts, and then we spawn in 6 people at the first player start. So our code is good. Our little error checks at least fix that issue from the duplicate world respawning from happening again. Seems like now at this point in time, the question here then is, if we were to, how do we bring in a player then? We have the default pawn. Where's the code to actually say, okay, now I want this controller to, is it, I wonder if, okay, so we basically possess something. We're going to spawn something in and possess it. Not really too much of an issue here. Let's make just a generic blueprint that handles this stuff. Spawner manager. Okay, we're just going to do something really simple here to test multiplayer, because that's what we're working on. Let's make sure we get input from our player, or else that's never going to work properly. Let's close this down. Let's simply put in a key called P, because I want the P key apparently. And let's print out, because as I've learned, if we do not test, things don't work. Okay, so there's all our stuff. If we hit the P key, okay. So there we go. We have our message printing out. You can see each of our clients calling this locally. Okay, good. So that's what I wanted to test. So we know that this is accepting input. Now we're going to make sure this is a server-only event. Not event has authority, switch has authority. And we'll make sure that this is technically basically only run on the server. So let's make sure we're doing this right. Get spawn up. You know, I don't need 10 things right now. Let's go back to simply something like 3. So I don't clutter up all my screens. Okay. We'll hit P here. Server says hello. We'll hit P here. Nothing happens. Okay, cool. So this is only running on the server. I don't want to have any casting. I don't want to worry about having server calls for this test. So let's just try something really stupid. We're going to spawn actor from class. Okay. I apologize if I'm a little slow today. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. The brain is literally not awake yet. We know it's a team character. So I called it team's character. Yep, okay. We obviously don't have any spawn. So this is what I'm curious about. Obviously, when someone joins in, we have this information here, where basically they choose a player start, and we get a player start chosen for them. But if we're spawning them without a pawn, see, I think there's a problem here. I think there's an actual disconnect. Something doesn't feel right to me. It seems like this is the code we would call when the player joins in and we want them to actually be part of the game. But if the player joins in and we put them in like a lobby, is that lobby technically then not part of this game world? Because it couldn't be. Because if you think of a game like Team Fortress as an example, you're allowed to switch teams and things like that outside of your inside the same map world. Store the assigned spawn in the player controller, which is fine, but to me it feels weird. Maybe it's just me, but it seems weird that this code would get called without us wanting to put something in the game. It seems like there'd be a way to have this code not called until we actually wanted to spawn someone. Yeah, you spawn with the spectator pawn, and you're in the lobby. You can choose, which team you're on and which character you want, and then you're in the game world at the start point, which isn't an issue. But if we tried to basically implement this, well, actually, let's just see. I really shouldn't do this. Let's just figure stuff out, and then we'll go from there. Crap. So now we need to assign a client. So I'm going to, let's try something. Get game state, get player array. So this is on the server. This gives me all the players on the server. This gives me get player. It's the player. Oh wait, and I need to get the first one. This will give me the player state, and then yeah. How do we shoot? There's a lot of things here. The server has basically oh my gosh. See, I'm trying to go around this the wrong way. Yep. No, and I'm reading what you're saying here. Yeah, there's lots of ways of doing this. The method I'm trying to think of right now is literally, how does Unreal expect us to be using this system? I'm starting to think, based on a lot of stuff I read, Epic implemented a lot of stuff, but never actually implemented any process on how they're supposed to be used. These are merely helpers to help you code whatever you want. Because I've noticed a lot of people do things different ways. There doesn't seem to be one set way. The game mode keeps track of all the player controllers. It keeps track of all the players in the game. It's supposed to do that because we have right here on post login, we get a list of all of our players. So let's just simply make sure we're doing that. Here's a reference of player controllers. Turn this into an array. We're going to add unique, and we're going to start adding in our player controllers to our array. Because this will actually tell us if we have a controlled pawn or not. And yeah, like you're mentioning, since you're spawning an act, the player starts are not mandatory. That's just kind of... Yeah, that's why I said this feels really weird. It seems like all this code we put in here for the choosing the player start is kind of pointless if we're not spawning the player in initially. If, like, for example, they join and boom, they're right in. The code feels disjointed. I have a feeling I'm just going to play around with this for a little bit, try some things, see if we can get some sort of just a spawning system working, and then maybe do some more research tomorrow, because tomorrow's an official stream and I won't be streaming, and see if I can find the epic official way of doing this. But for now, we're just going to try stuff like this. Okay, so we have our game mode, and our game mode is going to keep track of our players. So what I think I want to do is, let's try something like this. We're going to spawn in a character nowhere, just because for now we don't actually have a player start. Let's get our game mode, because again, we're running this on the server. And we're going to cast this to the team game mode. First per cast. We're going to get our player controllers. So this is our array, and then I'm going to try to move this over here. Let's do a break this time because we didn't last time and we kind of screwed ourselves. And we're going to loop through all of our player controllers, and we're going to get the controlled pawn, and we're going to see if it is nothing. If we have no controlled pawn, then we're going to spawn in a pawn. We're going to assign this pawn to the controller. So if it's equal to nothing, then we're going to... Here's our controller, and we're going to possess this pawn that we just spawned in. And then we're going to break. So let's grab this over here and call... Whoop, where'd my break go? Break. Okay. So let's see what happens if we do that. I literally have no idea what's going to happen. Here's our server. Let's hit P, and there we go. Yep, and it spawned in at the 0 point. But it did work, and in theory, if I hit P again, we should get a second player, and P again should give me a third player. Okay, so there's our basics right there. Which makes me curious now if we can, this code right here, the find, well, actually, if you notice that, where's my game mode code? Choose player start. This code, I think that, was this code ran every time I spawned someone in? Oh, let's find it for a second. Let me wait for my screen to clear. Yeah, no, okay, so... Let's run this on a dedicated server with 3 people. Oh, this is going to fail because I can't call it from here. Okay. I'm curious to try something here. Yeah, the third time I called it, it didn't work, which I thought was kind of weird. This one never got a character spawned in, even though it technically did. Okay. P, here's my first character. P, there's my second character. We see him here. P, yep, see the third one spawns in. Okay, I'm guessing it's an issue with the collision. So that problem we had before. But here's the weird part about this. Okay, so I didn't see any messages saying my choose player start ran. However, we were able to successfully increment our team number every single time. I'm not crazy there, right? The team numbers look like they were assigned properly. Let's run through this. Yeah, see something definitely. So, let's go with this here. Let's run this. What I'm trying to figure out is we already have the code when we spawn someone in. Should we be using it? Okay, so our team number is 1, which is proper here. And this is going to get called on all 3 clients. Okay, so that's right. Then when I hit P, see, we get assigned a team number 2. Yeah, the team numbers are stored on the player controller. Correct. However, I'm not setting that till right here. Unless someone remembers me setting the controller, the team number somewhere else, I don't set it until we run our code inside of our choose player start. Oh, no, you are correct. Thank you. Yep, you are correct. We do have the player controller automatically set this stuff up. You're right, because this does technically run without a pawn being spawned. Thank you for reminding me of that. Okay. Again, yeah, no, you are ahead of me again, Harry. I do appreciate it. Like I said, it's been a long day. That's working good. We're good there. So the question then is, okay, so shoot. Okay. The reason I keep saying this over and over is I feel like we're doing this wrong. I feel like there's a better way that Epic wants us to do this. And I'm just simply throwing numbers at the screen to get a result. I need to stop thinking about that and just get something. So just ignore me in terms of that one. We do actually have sort of a spawning system in place. Unfortunately, they're not spawning where I want them initially, which means that this code right here in the game mode should be ran again. Can the code run again? Is kind of a question here. It's technically inside of our game mode, right? So if we were to run... Yeah, see? Because it's a overridden function, we technically can't run the choose player start code. That's what I was hoping we could do, but we can't. So let's do this one. Custom event, custom choose player start. I don't know why I made an event when I could just simply call it a new function. Okay. If we were to... Yeah, because we technically have 2 different things in here. We have our choose player start, which is ran automatically when someone joins into the server. And what Harry is mentioning right now is this is good when our game is automatically spawning something in for us. But if they're not, if we are manually spawning something in, we probably need to handle it all ourselves. That is a very, very good... Yep, you're literally right where I'm at in terms of the thinking on this one. Whoa, that was silly. Where did my construction event go? There we go. Okay. Turn this into a local variable. I've still got some other issues in here, like our outputs should not be... I actually have return nodes. Did it create... Oh yeah, I'll say this thing should fail because I don't actually have valid return nodes here. These are bad return nodes. What am I returning? An actor reference. Really? That's what I'm returning? Custom choose player start. Interesting. Which makes sense. Whoops. We type in actor and then choose reference. It technically makes sense. Let's see. And then we're going to return like that. Huh. is because these other return nodes here. Okay, let me see what's going on here. Why is my return node? Why is my return node, which I now can't get rid of, and I managed to, ooh, I've broken, ooh, no, that's not good. Okay, so copying return nodes from another function might not be the smartest thing in the world, it looks like. Eep, that wasn't smart. Okay. Morning, Sterling. How are we doing today? Okay, so this is something good to know. We should not be pulling the custom return nodes out of there, or the specific return nodes, which is good. And this is all expected because we don't have the local variable. And then couldn't find a variable valid player start, and that's fine. Yep, this one I need to rename, because if I don't rename things, I can't tell if it's a local or a global variable, and that is really bad programming choice by not renaming these things locally. Sorry, by not naming these with the local naming convention. Okay, there we go. Cool. So that ran. Granted, nothing's working. I don't have any return nodes here. Whoops. But there we go. Now we don't have that really weird issue where we were getting unexpected results from our return nodes. Oops. It looks like the lesson from all of this is going to be think really, really hard about how you want to design something from the scratch, so that way you don't basically duplicate code. Let's see. Harry, keep the team number. Yeah, see? My thought is have it run each time you spawn a player pawn in. That is my definite thought process. On-post login would be nice, except for the fact that I'm thinking we don't want to store anything until we actually spawn the player in, because if we stored things and then composition changed, we'd kind of be an issue. I need a player controller on the input. You are correct. Which is just apparently of type controller. I did not know type controller exists. Oh yeah, that makes sense because you have AI controllers and player controllers. So I guess technically that makes sense. Let's see. Zenthorth. No, I wish we were making Paragon 2 hours. I just unfortunately lacked the networking ability, which is what we're trying to work on. We are trying to just basically get a basically, I gotta stop doing that. We are trying to get a simple spawning system working where we can send someone into null space when they join the server, and then when they choose maybe a side, we'll spawn them in with the correct color for the team, correct team number, and then the correct location. We had it set up properly when we were doing auto join, but then we ran into an issue where it doesn't work properly if we're doing a manual join. So we're trying to make that work. And Sterling, that's awesome. Yeah, Jan's coming from Germany, right? I think I saw him in the chat mentioning he was getting ready to get on his pigeon. Okay, so spawn, possess. So we need to probably do it here then, right? We need to do this. Let's grab... No, because technically that won't... Okay, so we could still spawn it at 0, 0, and then we can move it, right? Because it's technically in the same frame. Shouldn't be an issue, I would think. Let's disconnect this for now. We are spawning in a pawn. Keep in mind, this stuff is ugly, but we're not concerned about that. I am concerned about something else, though. Okay. Let me jump to my concern right here, and then we'll test it. When we choose our player start, it gives us a controller. And then we have back here, and we return back out, a player start actors reference. Not a problem. I see no issue with any of this stuff so far. Never mind. I answer my own question. I'm a dum-dum. Just ignore me. My concern was the fact that when we're spawning it, we don't actually see the code that the game mode is using to spawn in our pawn or put our pawn in the correct spot. I'm not going to assume it's just a simple spawn actor node. My concern was when I plug in the return result from our code with an actor, I'm going to have to grab that actor's transform and plug it into here. And my concern was if it would cause collision issues and things like that. But you know what? I'm honestly just second guessing myself rather than just throwing stuff at the screen and works. I should be doing that. Let me drop this over here. We're going to set actor transform. And we're going to set its transform to the transform from our spawn point. So basically we need to talk to our game mode again, call our custom, choose player start. And I will definitely be cleaning this stuff up here shortly. This is friggin' ridiculous. This is what we need local variables for, because this is ridiculous. We fill in the player controller that we are currently talking to right now. Ask it to choose a player start. It should talk to the player controller, assign all of our variables, and do things like that. I am concerned that some of this code isn't going to fire properly, but we'll figure that out in a second. And then we're going to set our transform to the world transform. Get world transform. I want the actor transform since this is an actor. And plug it into here. And in theory, now we hook this one back up after we've spawned into our break. Okay. This might put the person in the right spot. Let's see what happens, shall we? Select our server, hit P. It looks like he's at the right spot and the right color. I'll hit P on the client. Nothing should happen. So our code's still working. I'll hit P. We get to choose player start. I'll hit P again, and we get our third player start. Okay, cool. So that looks like it's working. Let's see. Each anew. I don't see how you can work without blueprints. Unity technically has visual scripting languages. Well, first of all, hello to the new people. Unity does have visual scripting languages. I've actually worked in Unity for years before I moved to Unreal, and I've used most of the languages. It's not as easy to use as blueprints, but it does work. But I love working in blueprints just because I get to draw code and experiment, and it's more fun for me. So I think blueprints are fantastic. DM Radio. Project we're working on. We are not working on a project. These are exercises. We are learning multiplayer, well, technically networking, because I don't know how networking works in blueprints and Unreal Engine. So we're trying to learn all we can about networking so we can break it down and make it easy for other people to learn. Today's goal is currently we have different game modes, and we have a team game mode. So we have Team 1 and Team 2, and we've been setting up, prior to today, different game modes and settings and controllers and stuff like that. We had the automated system working where, for example, if they were to join in with valid pawns, it would populate them in the correct spot. And right now we're working it where it's kind of like a lobby system. So when we hit play, everyone's here in a lobby. They can choose a team, and it will spawn them in on the correct team on the correct side. That's what we're working on, making our custom spawning code. Sorry about that. Now, in theory, if we did this right, if I open my game mode back up and I set our default pawn class back to our character and ran this, it should still work properly. We get our default code running in and joining in and populating automatically. And now we have the ability to have our spawn in person come in afterwards, for example. So we have both of them working. We have our custom spawning and we have our choose player, our default game mode spawning in. So that's good. So we actually set that up in a fairly dynamic way. If we change this to 7 people, we should get 7 screens. There are more screens. I don't know where they're at, but we should get 7 people. Yep, 4 reds and 3 blues because we have it set up. So now, in theory, I love the word theory because it saves me from actually sounding like I know what I'm talking about. If we set a maximum number of let's see if we can do this. I have not worked with Logic bricks in Blender. I've never really used Blender, but I have worked on other brick-based systems like Construct and Stencil, and the original one, which I can't remember, which my kids love playing with. So I am familiar with stuff like that. I actually love Construct because it's fun and easy to program with. Our game mode handles our logins. So let's find our post login event right here. And this gives our controllers. So let's set up max number of players. I'll set this to it. Yep, not a float. We can't have partial players. Turn it back to a variable. Put it in our setup. And now we have max number of players. I'm going to change this to 8 because we only have 8 spawn points. Yep, so we're going to go with 8. And we're going to put some code in here. It's going to be the possess. This is probably a stupid way of doing this, I'm going to be honest, but I'm curious to see if we can make it work. What we're going to do is we're going to find our possess event. This is the event that fires off when the character is possessed. Our controller actually takes control of it. We're going to check and make sure that we are allowed to spawn. As far as I can tell, if I'm telling it to spawn in with... where to go? Okay, buttons, thank you. A default pawn class, it's going to try to spawn it in no matter what. This is not the right way of doing the code. The proper code would be what we've been working on and having in the spectator, so you don't actually get anyone spawning in. But I'm going to see if we can properly set up a queue type system. I wonder if we could do this. So let's say they were spawned in, but there's no room for them at the end anymore. What we want to do is let's get our game mode. And we're going to, and see, this is why I need to look. I have a feeling there are, yeah, see, we have our restarts. I have a feeling that there are, okay. I have a feeling somewhere something keeps track of the number of players connect and things like that. I know the game mode technically has our players array. No, that's in the game state technically. We have our players array, which we can pass around. But I'm trying to think of how do we keep track of how many players are actually in. We can't use our player controller variable because no matter what, the player controller variable, unless we just reject people on the server side, is going to populate. If 10 people join, we're going to get 10 controllers. Only 4 people may be able to play, but we're still going to have 10 controllers in our array. So we probably just need to keep track of how many valid players we have in the game. So let's try something like this. Let's because we can. Custom. Let's try player joined game. Yeah, see, we don't want player joined. Player spawned. Let's go with player spawned. Yeah, valid player. Oh shoot. Okay, let me do this a generic way, and then we'll figure out the better way to do it. Number of valid players. We're going to keep track of the number of valid players we actually have playing in the game. And we're just going to increment and decrement this as people join and leave. And the nice thing is that should be super simple because we have possess and unpossess. So we should be able to grab our game mode, cast it to our game mode type. And in case anyone is wondering or isn't totally sure about this, yes, we're just literally randomly trying stuff and trying to figure out how networking works in a good way. So we're going to set the number of... Oh, we want to get the number of valid players. We don't want to do any of those. We want to get... Okay, get valid players. Okay, here we go. I think my brain has got some neurons forming a path, and I think we can do this. So we're going to grab the number of valid players. We're going to check and see if this is greater than... we're going to check and see if it's less than. Less than or equal to the max number of players. There we go. So we're going to see if we have any room on the server. If we have room on the server, then we're going to go ahead and do nothing. We basically... Well, sorry, I should rephrase that. We're going to do this over here. So let me take this code. Let's see, we're going to need some room. So let's just move this down a little bit. This is our valid code. And we're just going to go with something like... is there room on the server? Yes. So if there's room on the server, we're going to do this. But then we're also going to go ahead and grab this one again. And we're going to go ahead and increment this by 1. So after we've set the team, after we've set our color to match our team number, we're going to go ahead and let our server know we now have another valid player playing. That's what this code is going to do. Now, if we don't have enough room, then we're going to go and destroy ourselves. Destroy. Just destroy, right? Destroy actor. There we go. And we're going to destroy ourselves. I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm assuming it's going to send us back to being a spectator. This is the code where we'd want to basically send the player back to their lobby and say, no, there is no room. Why did my comment not show up? Seriously? There we go. They're going to say, no, there's no room left on the server. You need to go back to your lobby and wait. Server's full type generic message here. For now, we're just going to destroy the actor and see what happens. Let's see. Question. To create a server for a multiplayer game, do you need a fast computer to do that? And is more wear on your hardware if you do? In other words, is it not wise to use your best machine for such a server? To answer that question, it's basically going to depend on what you're using the server for. You have to keep in mind, for example, let's say I'm running this on a dedicated server, and I hit play. Behind the scenes, there is a server that is basically controlling data. If it's a dedicated server set up, there's not going to be any visual rendering, so you don't really need like a powerful graphics card. All this data is just represented as data. However, this server keeps track of everything. So this server is basically like a client without graphics. So it's still going to need to keep track of, at this point, 7 people's data. It's going to need to keep track of when this character over here moves. You can see it over here on the left screen. The left screen right here, this is basically a visual representation of our server. So it's going to need to keep track of the data coming in and out, showing this character moving, the interactions between different things, any sort of math if we want to do things like pathfinding or validation, such as the AI wants to move from here to there, it needs a valid path. Okay, now the AI needs to run its behavior tree and see if there's a character. So for the most part, you need a fairly decent machine if you have a fairly decent game. That's about the best way I could put it. The server is a big coordinator, but while my client here is running around and doing nothing and it's not using much resources, this server may be handling 100 AI and managing where they're moving and their life cycles and things like that. So the server may actually need more processing power than my client, while my client may need more graphics or GPU power than CPU power. It just depends on what you're doing, if it's client-based or server-based. For something really simple, like where it's just data being transferred back and forth, you probably don't need a very large server. It's just going to track data. It's just going to coordinate. Once you add in AI and physics and navigation and stuff like that, then you're just going to need more and more power based on how much you use it. So basically, you have to build a server to fit your needs, I guess is the easiest way of saying it. Let's go back here. My cat got in the way. Let me move my monitor. Okay. I think our goal was to try to see if this code works, right? Every time someone comes in, we're going to add a valid player. If it's more than our max number of players, we should end up destroying it. We obviously saw that when we ran 7 clients, we had no issue. So, which is good. It's below our max number of characters. And our max number of players is set to 8. So let's see what happens if we set this to 12 again. And we'll hit play. We'll let it spawn up 12 instances. We'll go ahead and look. Okay, so we have 8 characters plus a 9th character. Let me do something really crazy here. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 12 instances of the engine open. So we know we're good there. We have 3 of them in Limbo Land, not spawned in. It looks like they're in the same map because we can see this character here. Let me verify that. Let me move this character over. No, see, what character might they be seeing? Let's see, is it this one? There we go. So yeah, they are all in the same map. So we know that they're all in the same map. They're just in spectator mode right now. They don't actually have a pawn that they are possessing. Hopefully you guys can see this, by the way. I'm pretty sure you can. I guess it looks like you can on OBS. So yeah, our issue here, though, is it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have a logic issue. We're actually spawning in too many characters, and I think that's me using my greater than or equal to improperly. Less than or equal. Yeah, if we have 8, we're going to spawn another one. So this should be a less than sign, not a less than or equal to. So we'll go with something like that. We'll go ahead and run this again. We'll spawn up 12 things. We'll go ahead and pull this back up. And there we go. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 clients on 8 spawn points and 4 of them observing because we've killed their pawn. So in theory, now, if I go to my server and I try to spawn up another client. Oh, we can't do that. That's right. We learned we can't do that. We learned we have to do it from in here. So let me try this again. Spawn up 12 of them. And I do have 12 of them. And we do our button for adding in a new client. We get our new client right there. So we spawned in. We should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We have 13 clients running. And our last one that we spawned in as a spectator because they couldn't join in. So we're good. Let's see. Why do some servers always break on multiplayer games? Just depends on how it's set up. It could be... a lot of things are separated. So you could have one server that handles transactional databases like inventories or banks and stuff like that. You could have one server that handles a zone. You have other games that actually have sub-servers inside of zones. So, for example, Final Fantasy XIV, they have large named monster fights when, like, Odin and stuff like that spawns in the world. I don't think Odin. I think it might be Odin. I'm trying to remember. There's one guy that spawns in one of them. But what they do is that main server may not be able to handle, you know, it could be the fastest server out there. But if you have 300 people trying to do stuff, and this server is now trying to handle AI for 300 monsters, plus the pathing logic for 400 players, plus spell casting, cooldowns, and basically the server has to validate everything, that server is going to basically break. Or that's when sometimes you see lag. Different games handle things differently. EVE Online, for example, once it gets large enough, it starts simulating things on a delayed time. So you end up purposely seeing things lagged out because it simulates things and then broadcasts. So yeah, every game has different limitations. Usually, people is the biggest limitation. The maximum amount of data that can be transferred back and forth and handled. That's why games like Guild Wars 2 will spawn instances or extra versions of the same stuff, so that way you don't automatically overload the server. It's load balancing and stuff like that. Trying to combine PS4 and PC into one game, probably not the issue, because that's just going to be a lot of main differences on the client side, not the server side. It's just more of an issue of people doing things that the programmers didn't expect, and the servers just can't handle it. There's just too much going on, and there's not much you could do about it except to think about it. Pre-plan out as much stuff as possible, population caps, stuff like that. That's why you have, like your old school games, like EverQuest had, or even Warcraft now when the expansions drop, they have queues. And they balance the amount of people in the game based on where they're expected to be and things like that. And that's why even Warcraft now technically invisibly spins up new servers and segregates people with world instancing. Because it's a good solution to the problem. But no, this is cool. That worked. Hopefully everyone saw that we managed to actually get our fake little spawning system working. And we actually didn't run into any real issues, which is kind of cool. Our custom spawning code worked properly. I would assume this is going to work with our default character as well, which I'm curious about. This should solve that issue we were talking about. So let's go into our game mode. Let's go back to our defaults. Let's go back to our character. You know what? What I was literally talking about was working. Duh, I forgot we were testing it like that. Yeah, we have it now set up where we can have a max number of people that can spawn in. So we could technically only allow so many people in at a certain time. And everyone else could spectate. Now, technically, we have them spawn in as nothing. We don't have them spawn in as an actual spectator client. If we were to spawn them in as, for example, if we did, I want to say this should work for what I'm thinking. Yeah, see how we have people spawning in as spectator classes? That could give us technical control. But I don't think that's the proper way of doing that, and I mention that because there is overrideable functions on here called must spectate and can spectate. So there are systems already in place to handle spectating. We just aren't using them because we don't know how to use them. Okay, cat number 2. Thank you. Let's see. I'd love for you to talk about how Conan Exiles and Arc servers work. I would love to be able to talk about that as well, but this entire thing that we're doing now is learning the networking. I know at a high level how basic networking works, but in terms of Unreal Engine, I don't have the exact information because we're learning it. Harry, discussion about Blizzard's WoW network architecture. It was basically just pointing out how WoW handles massive loads and queues and things like that. I'm learning a lot. I'm building a single-player game but know nothing about servers and multiplayers. You are literally exactly where we are at right now. Up until this month, I have not focused on multiplayer at all. That's why we're working on learning multiplayer networking and passing along our hardships to other people. We've been streaming for about an hour. I don't want this to go too long, but I kind of don't think we've done enough yet. I want to make a very generic interface, and we can see if we can get people to join in and out. See if we can pass that information to and from the server. Say, hey, server, I want to join this team, and then have it do it. Or we'll probably just set up where it's a join button and it auto-populates. So it's screw it. We'll do both. Let's see how quickly we can do both. Team UI. Because UI stuff is something that I can do. Vertical box. Where are you? Vertical box. I don't need it as a variable. I do need a name though. Anchor to the middle. Reset our offsets. Align to the middle. Reset our size to nothing. Size to content, and it should disappear. Add in a text because we should. Add in a horizontal box because I need one. Add in a button, and a button, and a button. Add in text, text, and a text. All right. We'll get this slightly filled out. We'll center that and fill it. We will go ahead and give it a bottom padding of 25, so I have some space. Vertical box, you're not cooperating with me today. Well, you know what? The nice thing is I can easily fix that. And then I'll pick a team. And then we'll go with team 1. And then we'll go with team 2. And we'll go with auto in the middle. Like that. Okay, cool. I think my buttons need a little bit of padding though. Here we go, padding. I just want left and right padding of 15. We'll go with something like that. And let's put a little padding on the bottom. 15, why not? There we go. We'll go something really simple like that. And then we'll make, let's see, team 1 button. I should not be calling it that. I need to call it button team 1, button team 2. And I'm doing it on purpose like this so that way they're organized. I want it. Button, oh wait, this is team 2. That doesn't really help then. Probably should have named this one auto properly. And we'll name that one team 2. Okay, cool. Now we have 3 buttons we can hook up. We'll go and hook that up in a second. I have no underlying code to hook it up to, but we'll set it up. Let's see. Pretty good tutorial on how to set up Steam servers within your multiplayer. Yep, there are some great tutorials out there on how to use like the Steam SDK and things like that. I've watched a couple, but honestly, the way I best work, I learn is this way. It's organically. It's just simply let's see how everything works and figure out what we can break, which is technically what we are doing now. Let's see. So this is going to be our custom code is what it's going to be inside of our game mode. So inside of our game mode, we have choose player start and choose player start. Let's see. Choose player start is called by the possess event, which means our spawn manager. So this code right here should not be in the spawn manager anymore. So the nice thing is we can take this code out that we know works, and we can put this code inside of our game mode somewhere. So let's make a new function, and we'll call this spawn player. Why not? Spawn player. And we'll put our code in here. Whoops. And we'll do this. Technically, this won't be needed at this point because we're going to guarantee we run this on the server. It's in the game mode. But a lot of people like to have this in here for safety purposes. Plus, it's already here, so it can't hurt us. So we'll go ahead and do that. We're going to need to change this code out because we're going to need to pass in a player controller. So we need to pass in a controller. So this is the player controller. Because we're no longer just going to blah, blah, blah. We're no longer just going to grab the next one. We have a specific person we are going to spawn in. So we no longer have to check and see if they have something controlled. So we don't have to do that one. We don't have to loop. We don't have to do that. So now we can clean up our code a little bit over here. Here's our player controller. Let's make this a local variable because we already made the last time we did this really ugly. So this would be the local player controller. And then we can hook this back up to possess. Let's unhook this. I'm going to fix that in a second. Our local player controller is going to be who we're targeting. Choose player start. We can grab our player controller, plug that in. Hey, this player needs to start here. And then we grab our get actor transform from our choose player start, and we get our actor that we spawned in, and we put it here. So in theory, if we pass in the proper player controller now, we should actually have the ability to spawn someone in when we call spawn player. Good. Okay. So inside of our team UI, now this only will be ever called from the client because it's on the client. So, okay, so we already have an issue there where, where's it at? Where is our code? Where this code right here, custom choose player start, is going to be called improperly. And I mention that because we're not actually telling it, let me clean up our debug code. We're telling it which player start to give to which controller. However, we are not we're doing this code right here. We're doing a randomization of the team. That's fine for auto, but we need to actually be able to choose if it's manual. So we need to just update our custom choose player code. Which team? And we're going to set it up. I'm just going to do an integer for this. It seems like it makes sense. Team 0 is auto. Team 1 is team 1. Team 2 is team 2. So that one, to me, makes sense. Do you need any code languages besides C++ to set up servers? Technically, you don't even need C++ to set up servers if you're using Unreal Engine. You need the source code to compile a dedicated server version. But you never need to actually touch it. You could still handle everything directly from blueprints. You could actually do all your code just like we're doing here. Open up the editor itself, compile out a dedicated server, and then there you go. You have a dedicated server without touching any code itself. If you want to skip the dedicated server part, you can technically just set up listen servers only, so the client is the server, and then you don't need that. Rubber banding is almost always going to be an issue due to overloading. They probably didn't properly test enough of the infrastructure, and they just it's too popular for itself right now. It's really hard for that first couple weeks when something is popular to properly do anything, no matter how hard you try. About the only way I could think of them to have properly have done that would be, or if not properly, even then, this is a guess, for rubber banding, is you'd literally have to limit it to 10 to 12 people on a server, and then you'd have to spread those servers out all over the world and throughout different data centers. That's why Warcraft has so many servers in different time zones, in different physical data centers, all connected differently. Yeah, there's like almost no real answer to a lot of this stuff. The cloud, if you want to spin up stuff in the cloud, like AWS or Azure or DigitalOcean or stuff like that, is a good way of doing it. But like Harry's mentioning, you have to have really, really, really good code to have it properly work. And even then, you're still going to have some form of an issue when you're spinning up new servers if it's not fast enough. Okay, so we have our code here, and we know our code here works perfectly fine for auto. It increments the team number, and it goes from there. So what we're going to do is we're going to fire off a select here. Oh, crap, I can't do that. No, wait. No, hold on. Let's do an equals. Never mind, let's do this, because I keep forgetting if we have, why would we do a select when we don't know the number of teams? We're just going to do a simple check. If it's equal to 0, as in we want to do an auto balance team, then we're going to fire this one off right here, our existing code, because we know our existing code works. It increments our team number, flips our team number around if we need to. So let me comment this out. No, hold on. This code goes together right here. Give me a second. Here we go. Like this. So if using auto team balance, put the player on the next team. Okay, so that's our code right there. It's only for auto team balance. This one grabs our player starts, which is what we want. This one loops through. This one checks to see if the team number should be the next team number, and it goes from there. So what I'm thinking is this code works good as long as we define our next team number. Let's move that into a local variable and then only check against the local version is what we're going to do. So we're going to do local spawn local team number 2. I can't name this properly. Let's just go with local team number. We're just going to call it local team number. And this right here, we'll move this code over a little bit. We're going to set the local team number to the new number we incremented for our auto player select. So all this has done is moved it from checking this variable here, our next team number, into a local version. So now if we go over here and we say don't check the next team number, check the local team number, now we're checking against the local version. So now the code should work fine if we have it set to auto. If we don't have it set to auto, which is here, this is the nice thing. We just go local team number, set, populate this variable with the team number that we put in, and then skip all this code here and tell it to go right here. Because this is our auto team number code. Whoop, stop it. There we go. And we'll just clean this back up. And in theory, if I did this right, and it is early, and we've only tried this once, so probably not, we didn't have to modify our code much, and now, basically, if it's a default team number, auto team number, our code works like normal. If it's a custom team number, we're going to spawn on that team. Cool. Let's hit play and see what happens. And everyone spawned in is nothing, so we're good there, because we went ahead and we set our default to nothing. Let's go ahead and set that to our team characters. If this worked right, nothing should look different. Everything should be fine. Yep, see, cool. We still have our 8. Everyone's still spawning in exactly like we expected. So we're good. We have an issue with checking auto balancing and stuff like that. That's more of a not something we should do in here, because choosing player start means we should have validated that the player should start properly. So that could all be done inside the UI. It should actually be done in our code. Where did we put it at? Spawn. Nope, not spawn player. Where's our code? Didn't we just make something custom for this? Spawn player, yeah. Yeah, that should all be done inside of our code here. Making sure we can validly spawn in a player and stuff like that. Yep, okay, cool. So we're good there. So our code here then, custom choose player start. Okay, so we're good. We are doing good. This is progressing decently. Team number. Here we go. So when we spawn them in, this is the team number we're going to assign to them. Let me promote this to a local variable, so we don't have to drag. I mean, we're only going to use this once, but we'd end up having to drag it all the way across. There we go. So now we have our local team number stored. So if we go over here, we plug our local team number into here. Now it should go ahead and pass it in whenever we call our spawn player event. And that's on the server itself if we need to. So now we can go into our team UI here. And let's say we have button auto. We're going to, not get, we're going to click button auto. So we're going to get our game mode. We're going to cast this to our team's game mode like this. In my example, I know it's going to work. And then we're going to spawn. Now, I know this is not going to work properly. I'm already very much aware that this is not going to work properly. We're not technically calling this on the server. We're calling this from the client. So we definitely aren't going to have this work properly. We need to go into our game mode itself. And we need to go to our event graph. We're going to make a custom event. We'll call this one server spawn player. So only the server can call this. We're going to make sure we pass in the 2 variable types. So we have a controller, which is going to be of type controller. And then we have our team number, which is conveniently of type team int. Okay, we make sure this is a server only. And there we go. So now we have server spawn player that should only be called on the server, which means all this code should technically work. We don't know yet for sure. That's what we're going to figure out. So now our UI needs to make sure we call the proper thing. So this is game mode, this one, and then we're going to do server spawn player. There we go. So now it should call the correct thing. We still don't have any variables to put in, so we'll have to figure that out. Button auto is fine. We're going to pass in 0. Player controller. So we need to get the local player controller. We need to get the proper player controller to pass in. So our server needs to know which player controller this is. So it knows which player controller to attach the possess to. So how do we do that? Because technically the player controller on the client is not the same player controller as the one on the server, because it's two different instances of a player controller. So how do we do this? I have some thoughts here. Let's see what happens. Get player array. Whoops. Yeah, Conan Exiles has private servers. It's pretty much just like Ark, honestly. It is online, but it's a limited amount of people that can play, and you know, it's a fixed limit on the number of servers, and they can be private or publicly hosted. Okay, player array, cast to, oh no, get the game state. Get game, can we get, wait, no. Oh yeah, we need, oh shoot. Oh, okay, yeah, duh. My brain's not working here properly. I'm being a dum-dum. Get game state, get our local game state. And get our local player ID, right? Wait. Player state? Wait. Get. Oh my gosh. Okay. Hold on a second. I need to figure out where they hit the player ID at. Player state. I'm not crazy. Which you can't get out. Okay. Hold on a second. I know it's in here somewhere. I swear to God, it's... Where the hell is the player state at? Is it in the controller? There it is. I knew it was here somewhere. Man, they're hiding stuff from me. So, getting the player controller locally, getting its local player state, getting its player ID should allow us to identify this to the server. So technically we're not going to pass in the player controller to our server spawn player then. We need to pass in the... Okay, so again, I literally don't know if this is going to work. We're going to have to figure this out. Let's just pass in some extra variable here so I can do this for test purposes. We want to pass in the ID because technically, if we were to do get the game state and then get the hello. Oh my gosh! Come on, brain, you can do this. We can get the player array, and then we could technically. This is my thought process. I'll loop through all of these and get the player ID, and then this will match up with the one that's put in here and give us the player ID. So we can get the player state. No, we're gonna have to map them internally, aren't we? We're gonna have to map the player controllers. Yep, we're gonna have to map these, or at least keep track of it some way. We are, aren't we? We need to have somehow keep track. The server needs to somehow keep track of which controller is mapped to which ID, basically. Yeah, okay, you know what? Which is fine. You know what? That seems like it's a smarter way of doing this, anyways. Do we even have that player ID though? Let's find out. I'm pretty sure we have the player ID, at least on the server side, which is where we're checking this out. So we're going to go ahead and nuke that. We're going to nuke our player controllers. We're going to turn our player controller into a map, because maps are freaking awesome. And we're going to map a ID to a player controller is what we want. Why don't we just make this a controller so that when we make it consistent instead of a player controller. There we go. So we're going to map an ID to a player controller is what we're going to do. No, we need that to be a player controller. Nope, never mind. Let me make sure it's player controller. Because at one point when we call the possess, we still need to pass in a proper player controller. So let's make sure it's a map to a player controller. There we go. Okay. So when they log in, we are basically going to grab our player controllers. We're going to add, because for some reason add is what they use for everything. And we're going to add the ID. And we're going to add the player controller reference, which is right here, like that. There we go. So that should allow our map to basically have everything. And technically, this is a unique. Maps are unique, so we don't have to do the add unique node. Yeah, so we'll go with something like that. Let's see if that works. Okay. This should, in theory, give us a map, so basically we can know which ID is mapped to which controller locally, because that's what we care about. So that way, when, for example, we serve this. We call server spawn player. We can take in the player ID, then we can grab our map, and we can find. Oh man, things are named so funky sometimes. Find, based on the player ID, the proper controller we pass into our spawn player code, like that. So that should work. And if we go back to here and we grab our local player ID from our local player state and we pass that along, that should work. There's a lot of that should work right now. So let's see what actually happens if we actually had a user interface, which we don't. So we need to set up a user interface. So that is the code right here is what we were thinking. No, because this code's still going to fail because I have too many people. So we need to, let's see. We're going to assume that we have a lobby set up is what we're going to do. So on begin play, create widget. This is not the right place to put this, by the way. This is for testing purposes. This should probably go inside the HUD itself because the HUD is useful to reference back and forth and stuff like that. We're testing stuff right now. We're going to promote a variable. This will be the team UI reference. Because again, a lot of these things we're breaking apart in different sections and trying to learn them as best as possible. Add to viewport. We're going to grab our local player controller. We're going to set input UI. So that way we can click on our interface. And we're going to set show mouse cursor. So we have something to click on our interface with. Okay. So on begin play, we should get an interface. I'm just going to see if that actually works. Okay, cool. We have an interface. That's what I want working. We'll go back into our game mode now. We'll tell everybody to not spawn in. So everybody will be nothing at this point. Let's reduce this down to a more reasonable level, like 3 people. And hit play. And play it in a new window. There we go. So now we have 3 of them. Huh. So we have an issue. Our issue being, without a pawn, we don't actually have an interface. So that's a small issue. So this code right here technically works, but will not work because it's being called from the pawn. Which shouldn't be an issue. We do have a player controller, and we have a HUD technically we could use. Remember, we're just testing stuff. It's easy enough to slap this into our controller in this case. We'll make our new variable back to team UI, and we'll try this again. Let's see what happens. And there we go. And we obviously have some issues. I know what's going on. I just don't really know how to fix it. This is cool. I don't know what's happening when I click all these buttons, but that was pretty cool. Okay. Yeah, I don't have these buttons hooked up, but auto did technically spawn in a player and spawn another player and spawn another player. We have issues here, obviously, because we've run out of spots for player 4. So my auto setup isn't working properly, it looks like. 2, 3, 4, and then we start getting duplicates. Okay. But our problem is, and this is where the networking demon keeps biting me in the butt, our server code's not being called from our clients. This code does not seem like it's being called properly. This should my client is interfacing. So here we go. So let's see if we can figure this out. Let's run this and close it. I can't see past my cat. Give me a second. Run it. Close it. No errors. Run it. No errors. Run it. Error. Okay, so there we go. We've got an error. Let's see if we can figure out what our error is. Access none. Dynamic cast as team game mode. Okay. That is a definite problem. And I know exactly what's going on. I should have realized this when I was coding. I completely forgot. Inside of our user interface, we are doing this. And this is basically saying, hey, grab the game mode and tell it to call the server spawn player code. Now, I did mention a few times that I know for a fact that we don't need things like our authenticate because this is only going to be ran on the server. And I know this is only going to be ran on the server because the game mode only exists on the server. So this code right here is going to fail on the client every single time. So we need some form of a mediary. Mediary. I guess our controller is probably the smartest place to put this actual code itself. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Our controller would be the smartest place to put this, because our controller should basically our controller is available on everything. So what we're going to do in here is we're going to custom event server spawn player. That's what we're going to no, not server spawn player, we're server team chosen. We'll go with that. Server team chosen. Find our interface. We're going to need to basically call this event right here from inside of our controller. Now, this is technically gonna work. I don't like how I'm splitting things up between multiple things, but this should technically work if we turn this into run on server, because the controller exists on the server. And then it's going to basically call the game mode, which exists on the server. Yeah, I think this will work. Yeah. This is the networking. This is basically networking in a nutshell. Networking. Oh my gosh, I can't think of it. But this is basically networking. Randomly trying stuff until you figure it out. That seems to be how networking works. I wish that wasn't the case, but that seems to be how networking's working. Okay, on button clicked. So when they click on the auto, then we're going to get our player controller. Because we get ourselves. This is the client version of the player controller. And we're going to cast that to our team player controller, which is our local version of that. And then we are going to tell it to server team chosen. Now, obviously, we need to pass in the team that we chose. So let's add that as a parameter. Number, integer, like that. That's got to get passed along to here, like that. Go back to our UI, and auto is team 0. So now, maybe this will work. Let's find out. Server spawns in, so we're good there. Client technically spawned. You guys did see that, right? Technically, that spawned someone on the server. It didn't replicate to the client, but it did spawn in. So we are getting somewhere. We are definitely getting somewhere. I don't think we're properly passing along the controller is my best guess. We are telling the server that the team was chosen on the controller. The controller is passing along an ID and a team number. So let's check that out, shall we? Let's click here. We're passing along an ID, which of course I can't check because it's somewhere else, and our team number. It'd probably be smarter to step. Where's my step? Frame skip. Here we go. Check the values as they came in. So there we go. ID 512 and team number 0. So we're good there. Here's our list of player controllers, and we can see that would be player controller 0. Okay, which should be fine. Hello, Headclot. And we want it on team 0, so we should be fine there. We'll call our spawn player code with the new controller that we want. And we will... I did not mean to click resume. Dagnabbit. Let's spawn player. Let's see if we can walk through this. So here's our player controller. That's going to be controller 0. Spawn actor. Oh, if the server spawns something, we should be fine, right? And then we're telling it which controller possesses it, because it does it find on the server. We tell it where to go to, which works, and we tell it to set the transform. So all of that works, it's just that information's not being given to the client. Is that because... where is my... do we basically need to multicast this? I don't know. That's a good question. Oh shoot. Nope. I know. I have a feeling I know exactly what's going wrong here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I know what's going wrong here. I know exactly what's going wrong here. Yep. Okay. Okay. Let me say that. So far, I've been really confident in when I say I assume things, and I should. The client shouldn't have to possess it because technically, I'm telling the controller to possess, and that should replicate to the clients. And I know that works because when we tested it the other way by pushing the P key, whenever I give it the proper player controller, it would possess it automatically on the other clients. So the key here is it's not being given the proper player controller. And I'm pretty sure of this, so I'm going to walk through this and hopefully everyone can see the mistake. When I click the button to choose the team, I'm telling my local player controller to call the server version of team chosen. So this code now goes to the server, and this code is run on the server. It says, okay, get my game mode and call the server spawn player, and then go ahead and grab my local player controller and pass that ID in. This code's run on the server every time, so this code right here is always going to return the server's controller. We need to pass this information in from the user interface on the local client. I'm 96% sure I actually guessed that one properly in terms of what's wrong. So let's actually see if that's true. Because that makes a lot of sense to me. Let's see what happens if we run this now. Auto, auto, and auto. Look at that. They're not the right player starts, but that was the issue right there. We were basically assigning the wrong player controller. I kind of need to give our player their control back. So that's kind of an issue here. The UI needs to... shoot, we can't call remove from parent. First, we need to player controller. Set input mode game. I need to just fix this stuff so we can set show mouse. I will say, if this was a week ago, I would have been super confused on why a lot of this stuff wasn't working. This is why I like learning stuff like this, so I can... whoops, I don't want to show it. This is why I like learning it this way, because even though it may take me a while the first time, we've tried all the options and we learned how stuff works. Yep, look, there's our player. And here's our player over here. And here's our player over here. So we have all three players spawned in. Our player starts aren't working right. I think I broke something. But we have 3 different people spawning in. And being able to, it'll choose auto. This is kind of stupid. I don't know why this is doing that. But if we were to run this as a dedicated server, that shouldn't be an issue because technically the server... Okay, so this is why this code right here... Remember I said this is not the right place to put this. This should be inside of the HUD. The reason for that is the HUD is only created on the client. So we'd never have this issue where we're basically trying to add to a viewport that doesn't exist. This code itself should technically only be run if it's locally controlled. Local player controller. And this is just a workaround. See, now we don't have the error anymore. We're no longer trying to create a UI on a server when it doesn't actually have a UI. Like that, like that, and that. We should fix this spawning issue, but we're good. That's technically probably not a spawning issue. You know what? You know what? You want to bet that these timers are... what's our timer? Our recast timer set up on these things when we set them up. Which I didn't expose, which I should have done. No, 20 seconds. You know, those should be disabled. Assuming they're all 20... Are they all 20 seconds? I should probably double check that. Yeah, they're all 20 seconds. Okay. Where is our spawners? Where do we put our... Here's our player starts. This should be moved over here. I moved stuff out of the way, apparently. Yeah, okay. So our player starts... I obviously broke something. So I'm going to fix this up. Hello, old siren. I'm going to fix this up, and then we're going to wrap this up for the day. Let's just figure out why we broke our spawning itself inside of our... We don't need our spawn manager anymore, by the way. Let me get rid of that. That was us testing stuff. Now we've managed to make a basic system here. We still have an issue where things are player starts, invalid player starts are being chosen. There we go. That was the word I was trying to find out. We know this code here is still working because it's swapping our players. We know that it's finding all of our player starts here, so that's still good. We are looping through. I'm having a feeling that this is our issue. I have a feeling I shouldn't be using an AND check there. So let's find out. Let's debug that. We'll run this through here. We'll hit auto. No problem. Auto. Okay, let's see. We are getting a... Let's see, team number. Oh, these should be 1 and 1. Player start, I need to step. Oh, I hate this. It's the only reason why I try not to step on side ifs, because we run into stuff like that. Valid player start. Okay, so this is going to be player start 4 for our blue guy, which is fine. Let's find where our other one went to. Okay, so our red team is completely ignoring this right here. Which means this is coming back as false. And then one of our other, this one, I bet you want to bet this node is firing off for the red guys. My logic is basically messed up. Yep, that node's firing off for the red guys. That should not be happening. We broke our logic somewhere, basically. So we need to figure that out. So let's see. Our red guys are going to be team 1, right? But it's on auto. So team 0 should fire off right here. This code should fire. Let me make sure our code paths are working properly. Play. Auto. Okay, so let's check our code paths. So we'll frame skip. This is incrementing properly. The next team number is 2. Oh. Okay. So why is our next team number 2? I wonder which character is spawning in right now. No, that was our first spawn point, right? That was our red spawn point. Okay, we definitely have an issue there. Let's see if we can figure this one out. This should be our first character. None of our values should be changed. So this is now 2. Are we starting at 1? No, we're starting at 0. Why is this incrementing twice? Crap. Why is this 2? Let's see. And feel free, if anyone has any guesses what I broke on this one, feel free to let me know. Because that should not be happening. I don't want to... I already know where we're at here. Okay. Let's do this again without our issue. 1. Okay, so it's coming in as a 1. Where'd it go? I have too many tabs open. Let's close down all of our tabs because we know our logic's here. So this is coming in as a 1. Our next team number is being incremented more than once. But our next team number starts off as a 0. Okay, find references. Let's see. Oh. Okay. That is an interesting issue. So here's the problem that we're coming into. This code is technically already being ran right here. This is our default code for choosing a player start. If there is no players, no, this is just our default code for choosing a player start is what this is. Let me, crap. Shit, we don't want this to spawn in if our spectator, okay, so let's see if we can put a little bit of a check here. Can we get, there we go, get default pawn class equal to none, which should be now. Okay. So in case anyone was a little confused, basically this code runs no matter what. And this is the code that checks that spawns a valid player start. And it's basically incrementing our stuff. If it's equal to nothing, we want to return back nothing, right? We don't want to increment. I think we should be able to just do that. Let's try this again now. Okay, so server 0, server 1, server 2. Okay, so we are getting our variables to work properly. So that's at least good in terms of that one. We still have an issue. I broke something else. But that's not really too much of my concern here. Our automated one, basically, our automated stuff should never call itself if we have none as our player spawn. That's basically what I was doing. Because if we set this to team character now and spawn in, we get our expected result. We can ignore this controller stuff because of the fact that I don't have any server player side checking if we already are in the game. But the key here is now we don't have our variables incrementing when we have no pawn class, which is what I wanted it. We do have a problem though where these things are no longer working properly. Cool, but I fixed the first issue. The second issue is going to be this one right here. Which team is equal to 0? It comes in, it prints, it increments our next team number, it sets our next team number, and it sets that as a local team number. This one comes in as 3. Well, it comes in 0, ends up 1, comes in 1, comes in 2. Crap. Okay, something's not working right. Oh, crap. How the hell did I end up breaking the code without literally changing it? And why did that not get called? Because I am, let's see, calling it from client 1. Let's see, let me call this. Whoops, where did my client 1 go? Dagnabbit. It's client 1. Seriously? Oh, that's right. This is supposed to be on the dedicated server. Duh. There we go. Oh, okay. Client 2. Auto. Okay. The code is running through false. Oh, son of a gun. This right here. Ah. Oh, gosh darn it. It should be right here. It was a logic flow error, of course. Yep, okay, so we've got a logic flow error here is all. Our local team number is what we care about. And our local team number needs to be set based on whatever the next team number is. No matter what. So this shouldn't be an issue. It's just me trying to shortcut stuff is all it was. There we go. Let's try that one, shall we? Auto, auto, and auto. There we go. So we spawn one spot, spawn another spot. Okay, cool. They are technically working. We broke our colors completely. Yes, I probably should have used modulo. That may have... Well, technically if I use modulo, it's still an issue because I was trying to assign it outside of the flow. I had a false here. But if I use the modulo, it probably wouldn't have needed the if statement either. Yeah, you guys are probably right in terms of that one. I will give you guys that much right. I give a +1 for probably supposed to be an advantage to using modulo over what we did here. But we are spawning in our players properly because this one is on one team, this one's on the opposite team, and this one's on the other team. So our characters are spawning in correctly on the right teams now. We just happen to completely break their color. And this kind of leads back to the other issue we had before. The only reason this technically wasn't broken was we were running this code twice. Once when the player controller was chosen, which technically assigned them their teams, and then once again when the player is choosing a team. So we kind of have a small issue there. The nice thing is it shouldn't be too much of an issue. This one right here should probably be called before we possess. We should probably possess when they're in the correct spot. Because the possess code is where we are assigning the color. This is actually a stupid spot to be doing it. I'm going to be honest here. This is obviously simply changing the order of operations broke this completely, which means we probably did it badly. And I'm gonna say, yeah. So see, all I did was change the order of operations, and that broke our code, which means our code itself is probably super fragile and is being done wrong. So I am going to agree with that one. I don't like that one at all. I don't know honestly of a better way of doing it, mainly because we're kind of hacking together our code flow here. You probably want I don't know, let's think about that. So we physically spawn in a character. It doesn't matter what it looks like, it's a character. Now this character, when it oh, you know what? It's a logic flow error that I'm actually friggin' spawning the character in the first place before I've even chosen a start for it. I should choose a player start for it, so that way basically this controller has a start linked up. And then we spawn it in and set it. Does that not seem... Okay, so yeah, personal opinions here before we wrap this up. What do you guys think a good logic flow is in terms of presented with a screen? So in our case, you're presented with the choosing screen. You choose your team. It needs to spawn the... First of all, it needs to tell the controller that it now has a pawn to control. And it needs to spawn in a pawn. And it needs to do any sort of initialization on the pawn, such as changing the color. What do you think a good or proper logic flow is for that? Obviously, we have something that works. But is the method I'm using the proper flow for this? Or do we think this is a crappy flow? The flow we're using now is spawning something physically into the world, a blank shell. Then talking to our player controller, our game mode, and asking it where it should spawn in. So spawn pawn, initialize pawn, possess. That's technically what we're doing now. That is kind of what we're doing now. We're spawning a blank pawn in. Then we're initializing the pawn by figuring out what color it should be and where it should be and setting those values. And then we actually possess it. And once we possess it, we're setting the color. So more than likely, this code here, custom, where's my custom graph? Here we go. And possess, here we go. More than likely, my possess code should not be controlling the color. Wouldn't you want to spawn the pawn already at the location? That was my second thought, to be honest. I was actually thinking of that our logic is false, that our spawn here should actually be in a different spot. I was actually kind of thinking that as well. I was actually thinking that this might have been the proper order. Make sure we can do something. Find what we're supposed to do. So grab the player's color, team number, and do all the assigning here. Then go ahead and spawn in. Whoops, not that. Yeah. Yep. So grab that information, eliminate the transform, go ahead and spawn in based on where our player start is, our player, like that. So like you're mentioning, find it and then spawn it in. And then go ahead and possess once we actually have the character in our world, like that. That's probably smarter, at least flow-wise. I still don't like the fact we're changing the color in possess, but it kind of makes sense. You don't want to really change the color of the pawn until it's possessed, because imagine that we were spawning dummies into the world, bodies you could control. Once the player actually possesses it, then it would activate itself and change color. So that kind of makes sense in terms of the flow that we are using. I guess it's personal preference. This is definitely a lot cleaner than we had before. And it seems like it works well. Let's see, Siren's suggestion. What about setting the values in a way that's exposed on spawn so that stuff can be already set, and the pawn would just set the values itself when it started? That's technically what we're doing here. But that is a good point. We could always grab the team number and feed it directly into our spawn right here, so that way we wouldn't have to grab that out of the player controller. because that is on the server. Yeah, I mean that. Let's see what happens if we do that. Let's see what happens if we do that. That's a good suggestion. I'm curious what's going to happen because we're running a set with notify, which should still probably work because we're calling it from the server. So let's see what happens. We're going to disconnect these nodes right here. These are the nodes we were using to determine the new team color. And we're just going to hook these up without determining the team color from the player controller. We're just going to assume its color is already done and set and notified. And then in our game mode, inside of our character, we now have a team number exposed. So we'll grab our local team number and plug that in, and we'll see what happens. That's a very good suggestion. I'm definitely curious. And it did not give us the result we wanted. I'm guessing because okay. I'm guessing we're not getting, so maybe if we just call change local, so where's okay, seriously, where's my stupid character? There we go. So I have a feeling I know why that's not working. We're just gonna see if that happens, fixes it. No, damn. It has to do with the fact no, Siren, you are definitely asking a very good question. I like it, and it's a good thought, and that's why I'm trying to see what we could do. So our issue, I have a feeling our issue, okay, so let's see if we can walk through this. So here's our game mode. Our game mode's on our server. It walks through, it figures out our stuff, it tells our controller what our stuff is. Then we go ahead and spawn in a new character. This is spawned on the server, which means it's going to go to the clients. We assign a local team number. This is where our issue comes in. Once we assign our local team number to the spawn, I have a feeling it's not being replicated to everyone else. Oh, hold on. This isn't that stupid issue. Oh, I wonder if it's this issue. Remember we had this problem? No, because we're spawning in team 1. No, never mind. That wouldn't be it. Yeah, that just gives us green. Why the hell are we getting green? Oh. Okay. I solved the problem. It has to do with Honey. What Honey told us on Monday. In fact, that variables don't replicate if they're not different. And it has to do with the fact that we're grabbing a local team number here. But keep in mind, our local team number is 0 because we're doing a random one. So actually, your suggestion looks like it works perfectly fine if we implement the code properly. So we'll grab our code right here. We're going to make a new return output, and this is going to be our team number. So we're going to output the actor for the spawn point. So this is going to be our spawn point. We're just going to call it spawn point. And team number. Those are what we're outputting. Our team number will be our local team number that we are setting. That's important. This is the real team number we're going to be using, not the fake 01, which is our auto. Now when we call spawn player, we have an output from here we can plug in, which we can plug in. There we go. And we'll go ahead and run this. Now I'm guessing, oh man, I thought we had that working. We didn't have that working. Why didn't that work? That should have worked. Shouldn't it have? Because we're getting 0, which means that the replication code's working properly. Oh man, oh no, team number 0 is still coming out. Why is team number 0 coming out? Oh, so it would help if we actually hooked up all 4 of our return nodes properly. Yeah. Because we have 4 of them. Let's actually hook them all up properly. There we go. Okay. Take 17. Let's undebug this one again. And run this one more time. And there we go. Look at that. Okay, cool. So what you suggested worked and is a completely other way of doing that. And for anybody who is, you are right, Harry. This is definitely leading to issues. I agree completely on this one. I think okay, let me rewind for anyone in Futureland. Harry is suggesting that he thinks it would be best to select team numbers in a separate function, and Siren agrees. At this point in time, keep in mind, we do this organically. We do this to learn. It allows us to fix problems. I definitely think splitting out the team affinity, the team number, finding the team number, stuff like that, should probably be in its own function. We've basically, this function or event is called choose player start. Now, choose player start also has a secondary effect of setting the team number. So that seems like either we need to change the name of this function or event, or we need to actually remove it and only have this function do what we told it. I agree completely. That's one of the things we're going to start on first on Friday. So let me summarize in terms of what happened for Siren's suggestion and how we got it working. So when we were, his suggestion was rather than setting our color in our event, let me go back to our event graph. Okay, where'd it go? Down here. So what we were doing was during our choosing of our team, regardless of where it's at right now, our event is in the wrong event. Once we chose a team, basically we told the player controller which team number they were on. We didn't have a character we could notify because the character didn't exist at the time. Just that basically the team number was assigned to the controller. And that technically makes sense because, for example, Team Fortress, you joined blue team. Now, once you're on the blue team, you could back out to the character select and choose the engineer or the scout or the medic, for example, and still stay on the same team. So assigning the team to the player controller allows us to still swap out the controller. So that, in theory, makes sense, and I agree with that one. I like that idea. However, that required us to, once we spawned in our character, we had to talk to our controller, grab the team number from the controller, and then use our notify replication here to change the color internally. Siren's idea was when we spawn in our character, since we have code to spawn in our character, why don't we go ahead and set the color, the team number right then? And that's a good idea, and it worked. It actually worked by basically passing that in. We exposed the variable and we passed it in. And then inside of here, we were basically telling it to change the color, because the change color code is in our notify rep right here. So we still had to call the change color function, which is good. So we don't have to do this. We don't have to talk to the player controller. We're now passed in on creation the proper team number. So that worked perfectly fine. Our issue was something that Honey brought up, and I always forget. Well, not always forget. I actually remembered after a short bit. Replication only occurs on a change. Since we were passing in a crappy team number, we were passing in the number 0 as our team number, and our default was 0. No number changed, no replication occurred, so no value changed, so we didn't need to do anything. We had 0. Since we're passing in 0, since we are now passing in a value that is 0, 1, 2, whatever, not -1, we now have replication working. And like Siren's mentioning, we cut out casting. I don't technically know if this is our best solution yet. It is an alternative that we have been able to make work. And it also points out again and reminds us, try not to set default values to like 0 and use 0 as a value, because then you'll end up with replication issues. I like the idea of keeping the player, the team number in the controller. I like your guys' mention of the fact that we shouldn't have our team number assigned inside of our player start assigning. So we're going to work, so we'll work on wrapping this up. This is good. We've managed to, for anyone who is catching up, but to wrap up, we've managed to basically create a basic selection system now. We have our characters spawning in as nothing, basically. Oh, let me, hold on a second. Sorry about that. It seems kind of silly not to simply hook up the other buttons. So that is actually really kind of silly. So what we're going to do is we're going to cheat here. And do that, and do that. Mainly because I don't see the reason to recode the same stuff multiple times. So we're going to do that. I'm going to line this up to the right. So all of our things are on the right. And then what we're going to do is... do I want to do a set? Do I want to do a select? Do I want to do a switch? I don't think a select's going to give me what I want. Because I need multiple inputs. Switch. Oh, you know what? We'll just do this really simply. Variable, and this is chosen team number. This may look silly, but I don't have to reuse code if I do this. Now, we are hard coding things, which we don't want to do, but for testing purposes, this is going to work. So we have that, and then we're just simply going to feed this code in to an enter point like that. Plug this one into here. So now we basically have just a small... Can I please move this? Thank you. Oh man, I was trying to move that. We just have a small little check beforehand that grabs the appropriate button and sets a chosen team number. So now we just pass the chosen team number into our function like that. So now I don't have to basically make 3 different things that are all of this identical with this one thing changed. Okay, so to wrap up, in theory, if I did this right, this should be a blue character, this should be a blue character, and this should be a red character. We don't have our team balancing working properly because keep in mind, all we're doing is our game mode is literally grabbing whatever our next team number is and incrementing it by 1. So flopping back and forth between team 1 and 2. We're not keeping track of who's assigned to what team, which is something we can work on Friday. Because in theory, you want to do that. If we only have 4 spawn points, we want to make sure that we only have 4 like blue teams. So we have a max number of players. So we'll work on like setting up another variable, max players per side, for example, or max player per team. I don't think I selected red and got yellow, did I? Team 2, team 1. No, I'm good. We're good. You're friggin' scaring me, Siren. I selected red and I got red. I didn't get yellow. And if you saw yellow, I'm gonna blame your monitor. Okay, so yeah, we were able to take and get our system auto-spawning to now allow us to custom spawn. We spawn into a fake lobby where we have a selection screen. Okay, it was a joke. Thank you. At this point in time, I mean, come on. I was selecting auto and I was getting green. So I mean, at this point in time, I wouldn't be surprised if something unexpected happened. So yeah, it was a good joke. It definitely made me double check. So yeah, we've got player starts working. We can have a player selection screen, a team selection screen. We can spawn people in. We put in that really weird bit of code where it will only allow a certain amount of players to come in. So if we have 8 spawn points and 12 players, we end up killing the last... Well, we don't kill them, but we destroy their pawns and throw them back into limbo. Obviously, that's not the best way. You should have these people go back into like a spectator mode, for example, which would be cool. I actually think this is organically allowing us to get the 12-player test at the end. Well, I could do 12. Okay, so there's a couple things. Okay. Let me finish my speech and then we'll do the 12-player test. So I think this is organically going to lead into allowing us to learn the spectator system. So that way we can have it, if there's more than a certain amount of people spawned in, they automatically go into spectator mode. So we can work on trying to get people coming in and joining and removing and stuff like that. So there's two issues we're going to have with this one. Siren wants to see the 12-player test. The first thing is if we set up our actual pawns to spawn in, so not auto-choosing, but pawns, we should get... are we on dedicated server? Yeah, okay. We should get 12 of them to spawn in, and 4 of them should be dead. So that's working properly because that code shouldn't have changed. We are still getting our maximum number, and then if we try to possess something, we're going to get them failing. So that works perfectly fine. And then as you can see, I'm trying to pick a team on these ones. Technically, it spawns them in, and then the code calls itself again and destroys them. So that one works, where our maximum number of players works fine. So then in theory, if we set this back to nothing, we should get 12 empty pawns. And we should be able to spawn in people to the teams appropriately. One of the issues we're going to have here is I can only show so many. Yep, and we should get, at some point, there we go. We should get our last 4 unable to spawn in, no matter what we do. Because technically they're spawning, and then we're destroying them. Obviously, I think that's kind of bad coding. So there you go. We managed to actually have 8 people spawn in. We should have 8 different spawn points, which we do. I'm missing somebody, so obviously there's a bug somewhere. Or it could be a case that I tried to spawn someone where someone else existed as well. Oh, no, that's what it is. Yeah. I doubled up on player 1 is what it is. There are 8 people. There's just 5 red ones because we don't have team balancing. So yeah, so that code's working fine. Things are in the wrong spot. Obviously, putting in this code here to destroy them if there's too many people is probably a good safety check. Just in case someone gets past our game mode and tries to get into the server through a backdoor, we still don't allow more than 12 of them to be in at a time, or 8 of them, however, whatever our max number is, because we're keeping track. The code itself, though, when we choose to spawn in here, for example, server team chosen, they chose the server, their team they want on, and our server spawn code. So all this code, this giant malarkey of stuff in here, this stuff should probably double check. We shouldn't even do any of this code if we have already our max number of players. But just basically leave them up on the chosen screen, give them an error message. But this is good. We at least know that we have some sort of flow going through everything. And we can just slowly start adding in safeguards and things like that. So I'm happy with the progress. We actually, I don't know if anyone's noticed, probably only the people who've been here for about 2 weeks and have been watching the enjoyment of learning networking have noticed. We actually had a lot less of why the hell is this not working? Why are things not replicating properly? I think that the basics of replication and server notify and authority is starting to finally come through. I definitely feel that I can at least slowly understand, if I think about it long enough, how the process is supposed to work, why things aren't being called properly. Knowing when you're supposed to call a server command or a client command, replication, rep notify. So I'm happy. I'm really happy about this. This team example seems to be going way out of control, though. Honestly, this is way more than I expected it to be. But I think in the end, and hopefully people who are at least watching this and in the future will be seeing the result of this will agree, it's giving us a lot of examples of how networking works and the replication and who needs to control what and making sure that you have a proper flow. Because even our simple case of taking this, where'd our code go? This code. Our simple case of reorganizing this code showed some of our weaknesses and things like that. And moving our color code over into our character, for example, for this event, showed another way of doing something. We allowed us to eliminate casting and replication if not needed. So yeah, I liked it. I'm happy. And I'm happy with everyone who has been giving feedback and participating and chatting and helping everyone else out as well, because it shows that you are engaged and it shows that hopefully you want to learn and you are learning something. And it helps me for when my brain is just failing to kickstart itself into proper gear. I do not at any point in time get upset at people making suggestions or pointing out when I make mistakes. I appreciate it immensely. So with that said, we are going to wrap up for the day. We've streamed for about 2 hours. My goal was an hour, and we've added an extra hour in there. So yeah, it was fun. It was productive. I appreciate everyone hanging out again. I normally say this way too many times, but I do appreciate everyone hanging out and participating. The next stream will be on Friday. It's going to be roughly the same time as normal, 10 o'clock. I should be on time. Tomorrow is actually an official Epic stream, and it will be possibly the last one for a week from them. Next week is GDC, so tomorrow they're going to be basically showing everybody what is being worked on at GDC. And hello, Damid, you've showed up right at the end. We're getting ready to leave. So yes, tomorrow's stream will be basically what's going on at GDC, some things they're going to talk about and stuff like that. And it'll be Jess and Chance, the community management team, because Alexander's actually on a bus right now doing the train jam over to GDC. Now, speaking of that, I will be at GDC. I have an educational talk on Tuesday for an Epic sponsored content. And then I'll probably be hanging out at GDC doing other stuff. That means, because I have a really crappy laptop, I'm not going to be able to stream it all next week. I will be streaming Friday, like I mentioned, but that will be the last stream for over a week. I will have my normal videos. I'm doing the debug draw nodes right now, which I found a really cool node, the draw debug string, which I thought was a lot of fun. And that'll be next week. So there'll be just a bunch of recorded content next week. I do wish I could have done it live. I just don't have a strong enough laptop to do it. So, if you would like to participate, again, next stream is on Friday. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to comment. Feel free to call me funny names. Do whatever you want. The primary point of the stream is for open office hours. It is just to have people ask questions and hopefully try to get help. And if you don't have anything that needs to be worked on, we find something to do. Right now, it's working on learning networking. You can contact me on Twitch, on Twitter, on YouTube, which I think wasn't working properly today. I didn't see any YouTube comments, so I don't think my YouTube chat broadcaster is working properly. So I do apologize. It was not on purpose. YouTube just has an issue. Twitter, YouTube, again, back to YouTube. In the About section on YouTube is my email address and the documentation of Doom. By that, I mean this giant list of stuff that we have worked on and stuff we plan on working on. You can actually see multiplayers in here somewhere in multiple spots. You can actually see it's way back here. I've been meaning to work on multiplayer for over a year now, so we're finally getting to it. You can add comments to add other things. Besides that, I think it's it. Damid, I don't know if the talk will be archived. Honestly, it is not intended for any of you guys. It is basically to talk to other educators, to show them what I'm doing, to explain my process of trying to step-by-step learn things and show this information to other people. The WTF and HTF videos, how they're focused and to the point. It's basically to give other educational people more information on what I'm doing, and you guys are literally seeing what I'm doing, and you have access to all the videos I do. So it's absolutely of no use to anybody except anyone at the conference. I'm just doing it because Epic asked me to do it because they wanted to fill a spot, and why not? It sounds like it would be fun. To be honest, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream, I'm probably just going to do 20 minutes of cat pictures on my slide deck and just talk literally about what I'm doing like I am right now. I can't follow a script. I fail horribly, miserably. I think I'm literally just going to start talking about what I do and show pictures of cats. So it may be interesting from that point of view, but in terms of content, it's going to be nothing new to anybody who hangs out right now. Hello, Headclot, and goodbye, Headclot. So on that note, again, I appreciate everyone hanging out. Everyone have a good rest of your day. I will see everybody at the stream tomorrow, Epic stream, 11 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. And then my stream will again be on Friday, 10 o'clock Pacific, roughly 2.5 hours from now. Have fun, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. I can't remember which button. Wait. Oh, and then also the stream's going to go silent for like 30 seconds so I don't disappear into the ether. I just couldn't remember which button that was. So bye again.